All right. Well, I'm here with Dwayne Barney from Business Blueprint, and I'm really excited about this episode. We've chatted about a lot of stuff. We've been in this industry. I mean, we're going to be able to talk shop. 30 minutes is going to go way too quick, so we'll definitely have to have you come back on. But
Yeah, I'd appreciate that because I love talking construction. I love talking with you, and I love the program you've got going here. So it's always a good time.
yeah. So I know what you do, but why don't you tell the listeners and the what is Business Blueprint and kind of
Well, quick little recap about me. I have been in the construction industry, mainly residential, most of my career, and I was somewhat burned out with the industry of doing it for 30 plus years, and also looking for a exit strategy for me down the road. Like, what could I do to give back to the industry? How could I help the new contractors coming in? And the avenue for that for me was to help on the business side of the business. So I coach new contractors or existing contractors that are struggling on the business side, because I haven't met a contractor out there yet who doesn't have a heart of gold and who knows how to build, but struggle on the business side. And I find it painful, honestly. I'm like, you should be more successful. You should be making more money. This just should be a better life for you. And it's the business side where they struggle, not how to build, not how to put in cabinets, not how to solve the problems. Most of them are quite clever at doing that.
Right.
And that's where I decided is an area that I've always enjoyed in the industry. I eventually got to the point where I liked running my business more than I liked building. And I was like, that's where I enjoy the work. That's where I thrive. And that's where I probably could give back the best to help out. Like I said, the new builders, and there's a lot of existing builders, 5-7 years in the business. They're doing quite well. They've got plenty of work, but they're working 18 hours a day still. They can't peel themselves away from the business, and they're exhausted.
And I think you can help because each step of the business, as a business starts to grow, it needs a whole new skill set. The skill set of being that hands-on, using the saw, the hammer, all that stuff. That is where everybody gets in it, but they don't realize it's almost an entire new job description when you start to actually build a company.
Oh, absolutely. I've even thought recently, I was like, I should try to sit down and develop, like, what is the job description of a CEO? You never see that because people don't necessarily, interview for that role. We, as entrepreneurs, we step into it. But at times it would be nice to literally have that written down. What is my job supposed to be? What am I at least supposed to grow into? Maybe I'm not doing that today.
Right.
Well, where am I going?
Yeah.
Where should I be going? What am I looking for? And it's not clearly defined. And like everything, we fall back on what we know, what we do best. And for a lot of us, you grab the tool belt.
Yeah. And I mean, you probably have talked to a lot about how many guys, try to take the tool belt off. And you hear this all the time. They try to hire some guys, but they don't have a hiring process. So they hire the wrong guys, and you can't find good help, and they put the tool belt back on, and their back's hurting, and they want to get out, and I think that's what kind of help where you come in.
Yeah, no, you bring up an excellent point there on hiring. Now, hiring is it just seems I hire a carpenter, and you can do it at when you get into business, it gets a little more complicated. You're hiring people you've never hired before, like a bookkeeper. Or maybe a full-time estimator, if that's your role, or maybe even somebody in sales. So you don't even really know specifically what they do. Right. It's not like a clean, you're like, hey, go sell stuff for me.
Right.
Well, before you hire anybody, you have to give them a clear definition of what your expectations are. Because it's that old adage, well, I hired them, I wanted them to go sell stuff. And it didn't work out, I had to let them go. Well, why did it work out? Well, he kept coming to me like he wasn't doing the stuff I wanted him to do. Well, did he know what you wanted him to do? Did you ever spell that out for him? I go on the assumption I'm an optimist. I figure most people get up in the morning with the attitude that they're going to do a great job. Right. People don't get in the car and drive to work going, I'm going to really screw this up today. Watch me go. That's just not how people are driven in my mind anyway.
Yeah.
So they want to do well. do they know what they're supposed to do? And they fail because we as business owners haven't given them a clear set of guidelines of what to do, when to do it, and what our expectations are. And then we can let them run and thrive and grow.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the biggest jump for any business owner is to be able to, they've run their entire, existence in their head. Now
Right.
can you get your expertise and how you want things done out of your head into somebody else's head? If it's training, if it's you're creating systems, if you're creating checklists. But I think you're absolutely right. Everybody's coming to the table wanting to do a good job, but if they don't know what the good job looks like,
Right.
what do you expect?
Right. And then the typical thing happens. The owner gets frustrated and says, I could just do this faster myself.
Right. And this person doesn't have common sense. But it's your common sense, and it's and common sense isn't common.
Right. Well, yeah. So the hiring thing is a challenge. It's a new role for a business owner to be hiring in that role. And the interesting thing for me at times is I look back at the process of building a house.
Mm-hmm.
It has a process. We all know. We dig a hole, we pour a foundation. We build the walls.
Yeah.
We don't start at the roof. We don't start at the wallpaper.
Yeah.
We know there's a process.
Mm-hmm.
And the process in building a house is not that different from building a business. We hire subcontractors, just like we need to hire an accounting firm or a lawyer. We don't pretend that we're going to be a lawyer tomorrow.
Right.
We don't pretend that we know how to install the HVAC equipment. Mm-hmm. We hire a qualified HVAC contractor. So there's a lot of the processes in home building that we already know. We have a schedule, we have a punch list, a checklist to get things done, to make sure the job gets completed. Mm-hmm. These skills are within us, and we've learned them and we've honed them, but now we need to reapply them in a different way to a new set of, now it's not I'm hiring a painter, I'm hiring a bookkeeper. So that's, it's the same skill set, but it's not.
Right. Where do you see, where do people miss? What are they missing when they're starting to grow their business? What do you think is one of the more important things? Is it the bookkeeper, or is it your books being right, or
the books being right?
Yeah.
That's typically where I see and in my coaching, I start out early with the, what are the goals? What are your personal goals? Mm-hmm. What are your business goals? Because I want to make sure we're building the business around where you want to go. If you want to be a handyman, kind of a service contractor, you've got a different marketing plan for that. You've got a different billing cycle for that than if you're a large commercial contractor. Mm-hmm. So where do you want to go with your business? And we'll build the systems around that. But I find that the next step after the goals is I dive straight into accounting. Mm-hmm. Let's make sure the books are well set up so you can collect the data you need to make the decisions you need to make to run the business. Right. And though we move on to other topics like marketing, sales, production, we're always working on the accounting piece. Yeah. It is so important, and it's usually pretty screwed up. I mean, just for lack of a better, the accounts, the chart of accounts don't look good. You're not tracking costs properly. There's no job cost calculations. I talked to a potential client the other day, and I said, oh, by the way, what is your percentage of overhead to your total sales? I don't really know.
And I think
this was a large contractor. This wasn't some small guy with a small set of books.
Right.
He had a full-time bookkeeper in the office.
Right.
Didn't know the answer to that question.
I think a lot of people have an issue around money too, though. Like they get nervous. And I think a lot of the people that are out in the field, they feel at home when they're working, when they're putting something together, and when they sit down and they talk money, there can be it can feel difficult. They can be anxious about it, and they kind of avoid. And the reality is like, and I'll say that for myself. Sometimes it's just like it's a tough month, and I'm like, I don't want to look at the books because we're not, we're barely making payroll here, And we've lost, and I would say, you're absolutely right. When it comes to the books, when we went through COVID and then this inflation, we weren't fast enough. And, the problem is the bigger company that you have, the more employees you have, if they're not adjusted and you're veering off course by only a couple degrees, the bigger the boat, the harder the turn, the more drag, the more water it's pulling. So all of a sudden now, you're not over 500 bucks. You're over 50,000, and you're over 500,000 because you have so many people going in the wrong direction. And we had that with inflation. We did not keep up with the cost of things, and next thing you know, every project was way over budget, and we didn't catch it quick enough to get even change orders out.
Right.
Because it's moving so, remodeling's moving so quick. We had close to 50 active projects, and it's just like, where'd the money go?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And by that time, the money's out the door.
Right.
And you're in an awkward situation with a client at that point as well.
Right. Yeah.
You've already given them a quote to do the job, and then you just got hit with this. Now you have to have the really uncomfortable situation of there's not enough money in this job to build your house.
Right.
And, that's a conversation none of us want to have.
Right.
Like
and if you don't learn quick to make those tough conversations, you're going to go out of business.
Right.
You have to be able to get in front and say, listen, this is where we're at.
Right.
And a lot of guys, we didn't do it. We didn't do it in the beginning. And because how do you go back to, little miss by getting a bathroom done who saved up the money that really needed the bathroom, say, hey, it's going to be another $3,000. They don't have, sometimes they just don't have it.
Right.
So,
right.
But it's.
But again, it's not your responsibility to mortgage your house so she can have her bath.
Exactly.
I mean, as uncomfortable as that is for everybody, you can't take it all on yourself.
Right.
As nice as you want to be, and like I've said many times, most of the builders I've met, they'll give you the shirt off their back.
Right.
Literally.
And sometimes it's a bad thing for them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No matter what they got to do, they will get it done. Right. I mean, I know there's bad eggs. There's bad eggs in every industry. But
I think the bad eggs are probably the ones, a lot of times they turn bad because they've gone out and they've priced the job, lost a ton of money on, went and tried to take the next deposit to then be able to pay their mortgage or to pay off the material cost of the prior job.
Right.
And now they're behind they're a Bernie Madoff type of thing.
I posted about that the other day, that that borrow from Peter to pay Paul can turn into a Ponzi scheme of your own making within your own company.
Right.
Because you get to the end of that job and now it has no profit.
Right.
And now you've got nothing to go on to the next job. And if it goes slightly wrong, now you're desperately looking for the next deposit.
Right.
Again, to pay off a piece of the last one and to get things going. And you don't have the money to buy the materials for the next job to start. Right. And once that, it's a nasty. And how do you stop the Ponzi scheme?
You can't.
You can't. Like there's no end to that thing. It doesn't end nicely. It never ends nicely.
You got to either just get yourself out of it by adjusting at each step of the way. So making sure you're selling the next job at the right price, getting rid of the people that are losing your money. I mean, I think in some ways, as a small business, you constantly have to be retooling it as you're going because, the economy's changing. People that you thought were doing a good job don't do a good job all of a sudden. So accounting is big. What else would you think the second thing that building and remodeling companies aren't, they don't focus on as much?
I think the next biggest challenge really, I mean, part of it is letting go of the field. I spoke to a guy yesterday, and he was very proud of himself, and I gave him a pat on the back. For the first time ever, he didn't meet the building inspector on site. He had one of his guys meet the building inspector. Well, that was a big step for him. Like, he goes, I know all the inspectors. I'm at every inspection. He said, and I'm trying to peel myself away and let my guys grow, meet the inspectors, build those relationships. It doesn't have to be me. I need to have the relationship with the architects. So letting go of some of those traditional roles and kind of being prepared to let go of the business, to not be the bookkeeper, to not go on every sales call because you now have a sales team,
Right.
to not project manage every single job because now you're going to bring on a project manager to deal with the client, to deal with the selections, to get the materials ordered, to make sure the window order is, 8 weeks in advance so you can have them there when it's time to put them in.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not doing it personally, and letting go of that piece.
Yeah. I think that's tough for everybody in any business, is that giving that control. Because to be honest with you, you're going to get burned. And at some point, you're going to hire somebody. They're not going to do the right job. They're going to say they did the right job. They're not going to, and you're going to find out in the background. But you have to stay open, saying, hey, it was probably because maybe I didn't train, or I didn't get the information out of my head to that other person, or maybe I just didn't hire right. So I think, my personal experience is like, I got burned a lot by a lot of people and a lot of just in general, but you learn from that. And then you have to try not to do that, because there's really good people that can run your business.
Right.
And there's really good guys that can do better than you.
Right.
So
those are the people you want to hire.
Yeah. So
those
I have project managers right now that have way more experience than I do. I mean, one has built, so many, new construction, like 5,000 new construction houses over his career.
Right.
And, the other one's been in commercial. Like, it's just, these guys are better than me, and they're out there. But sometimes maybe your first couple hires aren't going to find them.
Right. And you got to feel your way. And to your point, you've always got to continue. As a business owner, you got to keep looking at yourself.
Yeah.
It's easy to get pissed at that guy. Right. It's easy to get pissed when you lost $30,000.
Right.
Justifiably.
Right.
But you also have to keep stepping back and looking at yourself going, what did I do wrong?
Right.
What process allowed that to happen?
Yep.
Could I have done a better job in hiring? Whatever it is, we've always got to turn back and look at ourselves, because, though I say separate yourself from the business, it's still your business.
Right.
It's ultimately, if it's screwed up,
it's you.
You screwed it up.
It's totally
you may have hired some people to help you along the way, but you screwed it up.
Yeah. I mean,
and what do you do going forward? How do you solve that to try to make sure it never happens again?
And taking the ownership is kind of really what it is.
Right.
Take the ownership, and honestly, when you take ownership, you're going to feel better. It's going to hurt a little bit, because you're going to be like, oh, I'm not doing it well. But when you actually really take that full ownership, it kind of takes it off. You're able to relax a little bit, because you're like, if I take this ownership, that means I can fix it.
Right.
It's not the guy I hired's fault. It's my fault for not maybe showing him how to do it right. So it is a good, but it's definitely tough.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's easy to point fingers.
Right.
Oh, that guy was just screwing off. He never showed up. He could have done. Yeah, everybody could have done better. And I think part of being the owner, I mean, everybody says, your employees are never going to work as hard as you do, but you're also going to find out you pay for their mistakes. Mm-hmm. And you've got to figure something's going to go wrong. Mm-hmm. They're not paying for it. You're paying for it.
Yeah.
And, back in the day when you had the tool belt on, what you did is you went out there and you fixed it yourself.
Right.
And you saved some money, because, you just worked from 6 till 8 at night until the sun went down. And there, I got it fixed. But as the company grows, those options are gone. You just got to start writing checks.
I think that's probably another big factor that guys don't understand. I didn't understand, to be honest with you, is that, what you can do versus somebody you hire, it could be 70%.
Right.
So you need to charge that additional cost for the inefficiencies, because you're going to go out there, you're going to make it done right. I think one of the other big things is that, you have to charge for people not doing great work, and you might have to redo it.
Right.
And the warranty, because when you scale out, when you're doing 5 or 10 projects a year, you might have one warranty call. If you're doing 200 or 300, jobs a year,
you have a warranty department.
You have a warranty department, and you need to charge to afford the warranty department.
Right.
With the team that's going out there, and it's costing you $300 or $400 just to fix that crack, because they gotta go to Home Depot and get this and buy that, and then travel time.
Yep.
So raising your pricing, I think, is a whole other side of when you
Oh, well,
build your
there's
business.
there is that all the way, and that's where I come back again. This is why, as I go through the coaching process with clients, we always kind of circle back to accounting, and that's where the job costing comes in, and that's where I used to meet with my project management managers once a week and look at the profitability of every single job once a week. Are we on target?
Right.
Are we ahead?
Right.
Why are we ahead?
Right.
Okay, we just got a deposit and we're going to put the window in order in this afternoon. Okay, at least I know.
Yeah.
Why are we behind?
Right.
We send out the bill tomorrow. Okay, as long as we know.
Yep.
But just understanding where the numbers are at all times. And I did it on a weekly basis. My company the last one I ran was small enough that we cycled all of our money once a week.
That's good. Yeah.
So all of our invoices came in on Monday. We paid them all by Friday. And depending on the client contracts, all the client bills that were eligible went out every Friday.
Yeah.
So we were in a constant cash flow system that we had it set up so it was easy. It was easy to manage. It wasn't like this, everybody stop kind of thing. It just happened.
It's staying on top of it.
And but every Thursday we pretty much knew where the company was, every job was.
Yep.
And if there was a problem job, we, some stuff was water under the bridge, but we could really then focus and go, what's going on here? What just happened?
Yeah. I think, a couple good points there. I mean, one is get the receipts off your dashboard, make sure they get in every week, because that's always a fun surprise at the end of the job when you have a stack of, unknowns and now all of a sudden your job's over budget. But, you kind of mentioned billing every week. We started to change where we take a deposit for the job, but then after the deposit, we're starting to bill each week. And that for a couple reasons, cash flow.
Right.
But the other, as a business owner, you're stepped outside of that. When you're billing each week, you know that there's a problem because the client won't pay it at the end of the week.
Right.
Instead of all of a sudden when you've gone 3 or 4 weeks or a month and they owe you 80 grand, and then all of a sudden they're not paying, and now it's too late. You've already outflowed, outlaid 60,000, and they owe you 80, and they are not happy. So and
you didn't even know they weren't
happy. You didn't
happy.
even know they were unhappy. Yeah. So that's a really good point of billing each week, making sure your job costing, and it's discipline.
Yeah.
And it's not what the average carpenter wants to do.
Well, that's just it. It's a different workflow. Most of the guys, don't like doing paperwork.
Right.
They don't like processing invoices. They don't like doing daily field reports. When it comes to the paperwork, not their thing. But it's a business. I mean, you're a business owner. You're a business person. This is your job, is to run this business. This is your project. You used to run one on the job site. Now your project as a business owner is running this business, keeping track of the budgets.
So, I mean, almost, when we're talking to this, to kind of give one of the best, the big tidbits for this one, probably would be, kind of what you're talking about, accounting's the most important, is probably hiring a bookkeeper that has the experience and understanding of how to do this so that they yell at you until you get the receipts in. Because if it's the opposite way and you're hiring somebody that you're telling, you don't even know what to tell them.
Right.
And if they're not mean enough to you and that kind of, you know what I mean?
No,
like
absolutely.
You want somebody that is like, listen, Dwayne,
the bulldog.
You need to give me these receipts right now so that we can talk. And here's the reports, and you're losing money here. That's probably the most invaluable hire.
Right. And I usually tell the guys, one, it's terribly time consuming for most of us that are running our own business. We're doing our own books.
Right.
It's the one thing we don't like doing.
Right.
Absolutely. In my case, beyond estimating, which I hated doing.
Right.
But entering invoices, I was like, I'll get to it tomorrow. Right. I promise.
Yeah.
And they didn't get done.
Yeah.
And so, I'm a big fan of the remote bookkeeper, but any way you can have somebody else do that data entry for you,
Yeah,
is just so valuable.
Even if finding somebody, it's the hybrid, right? Maybe they're going to do the remote stuff, but maybe they'll just come in, even if they're coming into your home office and just going through the mail. It's that stuff you forgot to scan in.
Right.
And maybe I would say that's probably the first big hire you should have, and still stay in the trenches for everything else. I mean, it's a whole other podcast about, hiring sales and design, because that can be very challenging too.
Yeah, and I like the nice thing about like the part-time bookkeeper role to fill that first is it's pretty much a data entry. Not a lot can go wrong in that role, and it's a good way to kind of get your feet wet on that first hire of somebody else is going to do this for me now.
Right.
So it's a fairly, not to diminish bookkeepers, because, like I said, the most important in the first hire.
Right.
Like, do that first.
Right.
But it also gives you a chance to go, okay, I'm going to hire for a role I know nothing about. I'm going to hire somebody to do a job that I'm really not good at. And we're going to see how this works out. And it kind of builds up that comfort level to then hire a project manager or to hire somebody to help you out with sales or estimating or whatever those next roles may be that you feel are important to the company.
Right. And probably, bringing someone like you in to tell them what they don't know. Because going in, to bring a consultant in to kind of talk about all of the things that the average guy's missing, because you have that experience of knowing what like you said, the biggest thing they're missing is bookkeeping, along with a lot of other things. Having that person to be like, hey, if any of it is to say you're on the right track is always nice,
right.
Or you need to concentrate on this because you're going to lose money.
And that's, when you talk about hiring the bookkeeper before, I mean, that's the other challenge. You can get a very good bookkeeper, but again, they're an employee and they're going to do the job you tell them to do.
Right.
And, I've got a whole process of setting up a chart of accounts so I can accurately job cost the projects. If you're just dumping everything into cost of goods sold, the bookkeeper will do that for you.
Right.
Because you said, that's a cost of goods sold. They're like, okay, 5,000, good, done. And you're still not getting the data you need.
Right.
You don't have detailed job cost.
And
so there is a setup process. The bookkeeper will allow you to do that for years.
Right.
Because you said that's the way you want it done.
And every week, every month, you're going to look at your accounts and you're going to have made millions of dollars, and then the next month it looks like you lost all the millions of dollars because the deposits are going in the wrong account, and you're not accounting for any of that, and it's just this big roller coaster. I'm rich, I'm poor, I'm rich, I'm poor, and the reality is it can be fixed with bookkeeping,
right? And
understanding that this money is for future. It's to buy the materials. It's not the profit.
Right. Yeah. It's not to run out and buy the new truck.
Yeah. Yeah, and that happens. Well, I think the new truck is usually, hey, I owe a lot of taxes. What do I do?
Right.
Yeah.
There's always that, which I could have a whole podcast on why you don't do that too.
Exactly.
But it happens too often. There's better places to put your money than the new truck.
Well, we're wrapping this up. I think we definitely have to do this a few more times because there's a lot of good stuff. Any other thoughts on what somebody should, maybe where they can find you, and, any other tidbits of advice you can give these, the Wild West out there?
Well, the easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn. It's my social media channel of choice. Yep. I'm not anywhere else. So I do have a YouTube site where I put up some of my videos, but the bulk place to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm posting there every day, if not twice a day, with all of this type of information. So I'm there trying to help builders any way I can on that point of it. And I'd say, the big recap, why do you want an accounting system? Why do you want these processes? Why do you want to get this set up? It's about making money. We know how to build. We're not here to practice anymore. It's time to make some money. Yeah. And setting up a business that's going to get you to profitability is the goal.
Love that. Well, thanks, Dwayne, for coming on, and I think I'm gonna do. Well, let's do a cut there, and then we can just keep going because I think you came out here, That would be a good chop. I think we can keep everything live and we can kind of just chat more. But at least we have a good 30-minute chunk. We can kind of break that apart.
Okay.
What else? I mean, so what is your, what do you got going on? And are you looking for more clients? Like what's?
Yeah, I'm always looking for more clients.
Yeah.
Because they come and they go. My program runs 6 months for
Yep.
the standard program. Some people stay on. I've got clients that have been with me for years.
Yep.
We just keep going. We keep working on their business. A lot of fun because I really get to know the intricacies of what's going on. The baby was born in second week in November.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We get to know each other. I talk to the contractor as much as I talk to his wife because she does all the bookkeeping and the marketing. And I really get to know the whole team.
Right.
On ongoing relationships. But the standard one is 6 months
Mm-hmm.
to get through, the core of the operations in a business.
Right.
And then,
Kind of build a system.
I need more clients. So I'm always filling in the slots.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a rolling cycle with these guys.
Mm. Do you find that the guys, I mean, they're like, I don't need that. They don't even know they need it. They think they don't need it. Your help.
It's more of, I can figure it out.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. How hard can this be? I'll
Right.
figure it out.
Right.
And I totally get that because I did that.
Yeah.
And I still do it. I don't need any help on marketing. Figure it out.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm a good salesperson. I'll figure it out. It turns out I'm terrible at sales and I know nothing about marketing.
Yeah.
And I've had to hire sales coaches to help me get better at sales.
Yeah. But marketing, I mean, I think is very interesting because it's the only way you really grow once you have hit there's a point where referrals only take you so far. Like
Right.
you can't make enough people happy personally, because their aunts and the family will only like remodel so many times.
Right.
So like you kind of start to, you can still get enough work for you personally to do jobs just in your referral network. It's easy. But when you want to start to build a company where you're starting to hire employees, you need to go outside of your referral.
Right.
The other big thing with that is that when you start to raise your pricing, your referrals start to go away because you've been in that market
Right.
that needs the more budget-friendly company. And when you raise your pricing, all of a sudden you're not getting as many referral calls, and you have to then tap into maybe a little bit higher end markets.
Which means you could be starting over with your marketing effort and everything else.
Right.
That's why I try to tell guys at the very beginning. You can run your company at 8%
Right.
overhead.
Right.
It's not true.
Right.
It's a lie.
Yeah.
Because you're working 18 hours a day and not
Mhm.
charging the company for all of those
Yeah.
hours. So if you were going to work a normal 8 hours a day or less, which is really the goal, and you were hiring other people to fill in that other 10 hours, you're going to be running an 18 to 20% overhead
100%.
without a problem.
Yeah.
If you started your pricing there knowing that's reality,
Mhm.
you don't have to go into that big price raise at some
Right.
point.
Right.
Because I got to raise my prices because I got to hire this guy.
Right.
Well, now you got a new problem
Mhm.
because you're in the wrong market.
Right. Or like before you hire that, start paying yourself for that role. So if you are, you're going to go out and sell, pay yourself the sales commission so that you're starting to put each cost in a bucket.
Right. Put the money in the bucket.
And then you can flip it over and say, okay, well, that money was going, hey, I made a lot of money, but I was working 18 hours, but
Right.
I collected a lot of money.
Right.
And now I can, give that to somebody else.
And the other thing I say on that too is even if you don't pay yourself that money, charge the company that money
Right.
and put it in a separate account.
Right.
So you have a buffer
Right.
when you do hire, because they're not going to be making you money
Mm-hmm.
the first day,
Right.
first week, and in some cases the first month before they actually start earning you some money.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to cover that. So if you've built up a little bit of a reserve there and you've got some payroll covered, You got to train them. You got to do all the other stuff a new hire requires. It's not that painful on the company. You're not sucking it out of the back end as you're like, okay, I can't hire anybody. I don't have any money.
It's huge.
I can't afford this.
That's the other thing. Raising your pricing to afford the position, but also understanding you're not going to get a return for investment on your employee for at least 3, 6, even a year before you actually start, because you're going to have to put more time into that person.
Right.
And I think, people that haven't been a business owner, I think, don't understand, what that is. Like, we're, as a company, we're going to invest in you. Right. And then, the 3 months later they leave and you're like, oh, geez, like we just wasted a lot of time. Well, we hope that, that they move on and they're successful.
Right.
But,
and you got, and some of that you get to chalk up. I hope they learn something and they improve the industry.
Yeah.
And help my competitors. So I'm not,
right.
I'm competing on an even field.
Right.
So if that helps the industry overall, well, that's the price we got to pay. But I think in general, I know a lot of guys struggle with hiring, especially in the field, finding good carpenters, finding good people that know how to build. It's getting harder and harder.
I think it's aging too, right?
It is.
It's, and I've said this before, but we've had every society, culture looked down on the trades.
Right.
And, baby boomers coming in pretty much tried to push their kids to college, and I think they did a good job. They put a lot of their kids through college. And no one went into the trades. Yeah. And the electrician makes way more than any than any college degree now. But I think we're not out of the woods yet.
No.
Because we're gonna have this big dip because the guys that are in the trades right now that they're in their 60s, their bodies just can't. You can't keep going.
No, you're
shot. You're shot.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of companies, and then there's a lot of companies that maybe the owner has gotten off the tools, but he's still retiring, and that company's not going to exist because it's not big enough to sell, and their kids maybe not want to take it over and move it on. So that company just goes away. I don't know what we do, to be honest with you.
I think we've got to start looking really. Builders in general have to start focusing on in-house training. As risky as it is, we've got to start taking we've just relied on the industry to kind of train our people for years.
Yep.
There's union carpenters, but in some parts of the country, it does here in Connecticut, we've got, union carpenters. They're available, but they're still not a major part of our labor force. Yeah. And in most parts of the country, that doesn't even exist.
Right. And unions are, typically are going to be on big projects that are new construction or very repetitious large remodels of in where it has nothing to do with homes remodeling in old different era houses where you're having to be really creative and understand how we're here in Connecticut. I mean, and where you're in New York, antique homes you need to know what you're doing.
Oh yeah, no, I went into the basement. This was a few years ago. I was putting in some footings after the crash. I was literally humping the concrete down to the basement, but the beams on the ceiling still had the bark on them.
Right.
Like literally.
Yeah.
They laid down the logs. Those were the floor joists, and the bark was falling on my head as I was working down there. I'm like, what's going on?
And stuff's mortise and tenon together with wooden pins, and you don't even know how all this stuff is kind of And next thing you know, you're cutting
once you get the Lego set all together, it all locks in. It just stays there.
Yeah.
And then the homeowner wants the back wall pulled off. You're like, I think it's critical to the whole envelope.
So there's a lot of experience that these old guys are gonna leave the market. I did a video just about like the new generation of builders are just using Home Depot and Lowe's, and they're not using lumber yards as much as they should, because the lumber yards they have those guys that understand some of the products.
Right.
They have access to products that Home Depot and Lowe's don't cover.
Right.
They have
without a doubt.
They have they're more educated, and I think it's going to be interesting, in the future when we have that dip, because I think there's people coming in at this point. I think there's people.
I think there's more interest. At least I
Yeah.
see it on LinkedIn. I see a lot more interest
Yeah.
on it. There's a lot of guys posting about it. I
Right.
try to post about it whenever I can.
Yeah.
To encourage more people to go into the trades. It's rewarding without a doubt. I mean, for me, there was just nothing better of a hard day framing, and you step back and you look at the house and you're like,
Yeah.
it's looking like something.
Yeah.
And it's looking good. You know, it's just a very rewarding career from that standpoint.
You've created a living space for somebody. You know, you're absolutely right. It's probably the most rewarding. You know, if you're creative too, you can create stuff, and you know, it is really fun to be, you know, either to hire or just be part of, you know, the carpenters that really love what they do. You know, you go in there and the trucks are all perfect and they've got everything organized, and you know, they got the Fez tools, and it's just like, you know, the cost of their tools is worth more than, you know,
the truck.
Yeah, the truck. It's but those guys love it, and they get all pissed off if they can't do it perfect. You know, those guys will lose you money, but if you're not careful, but, it's definitely.
You don't put those guys on the framing crew.
Yeah, right.
You'll lose money real fast.
That's a whole other thing too. Is that as back in the day? I mean, you know, you would go, you know, frame to finish.
Right.
You know, that's what companies were doing, frame to finish. But I mean, with any industry, it's becoming, you know, you need to create efficiencies, you need to specialize.
Right.
That's a whole other podcast too, about the specialization of the trades and bringing in individual companies on the production level. Sometimes that doesn't work when remodeling, just because, you know, you're going to get 5 different companies in to do a 5x8 bathroom.
Right.
Sometimes doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Right. Yeah.
But
you need the jack of all trades.
Yeah.
You can't have that many people standing in the room at the same time.
Yeah. But you don't want to hire that handyman to hang, you know, 150 sheets of drywall.
Right.
We'll see you next year.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah,
and it's not going to be done right. But then you hire a drywall company, and they've got a, you know, 150 sheets hung and the first coat of tape by noon.
Right.
You know, and you're like, wow.
Right. Yeah. And they're rolling out, and they're going, if it dries fine by the afternoon, we'll get second coat on in the morning.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, that was easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had good framing crews. I had good trim crews. This is way back in the day. And of course, I had, you know, things would slow down, so I try to move my trim guys in on the framing crew.
Yeah. No.
Nightmare. No. Like everything slowed down as they're sitting there trying to, you know, cut the 2x4s to length with the chop saw down to the 16th.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, no, it's called rough carpentry.
Yeah.
Please.
They're truing up the edge with the joiner.
Right. Right. You're like, no, just today already.
Yeah.
Today already. I need a 2x4 over here.
Yeah.
So, you know, some of those don't mix, but I think we really need to start as businesses looking at developing an in-house training program.
And maybe on the government side, the government being able to give grants to these businesses, because that's part of it. There's a cost to that. If you're trying to grow your business, and you know, you need that extra cash to be able to put somebody to train,
right? And
then have that time that's not productive time. And especially when it comes to, you know, remodeling, I think for some of the trades, you know, I think companies that do, you know, exteriors, a little bit more production level,
right? Siding is siding, roofing is roofing.
Yeah, you can kind of train that pretty quick, but it's really those kitchens and bathrooms that are so intricate that's a lot of skill.
Right.
The remodeling side of it.
And it's experience.
Yeah.
Some of it is just, you know, you've done it enough times. You're like, okay, I know what's about to happen here.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. It's when you have experience, you walk into these old homes, you know exactly what to look for.
Right.
You know, well, that's going to be a problem.
That's going to be right.
Yeah.
Right.
Unfortunately, all that experience is from you know, all the things that have gotten messed up, and the stuff you've forgotten.
Right. And you've written a check for it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's the kitchen design when you go to open up the stove or one of the drawers, and it hits the stove because they didn't put a big enough filler in the corner.
Right. That's a classic. Yeah. You can't open the dishwasher because the drawer knob's in the way.
Let me get in my truck before anybody opens up drawers or appliances, and I'd like to, you know.
No, we've all had that one. You just shake your head, going, really?
Yeah. And you
Um,
call the cabinet company. Let's get a smaller cabinet here. Pull this out. Bigger filler.
no,
Too
but
many
that
times.
that's experience, and I've you get the reverse experience, especially in I had one doing a kitchen, and open up we were moving the window as part of the kitchen remodel. No big deal, cut it out, new header, patch the siding, opened up the wall. I think every plumbing pipe in the house went down through the exterior wall in the kitchen, right where we wanted to put the window. Now, cabinets are ordered, like this whole thing is underway.
Right.
This window is going to get moved, and so now we got to remove all the plumbing. I never expected all of the plumbing to be in the exterior wall.
I mean, we don't even do that to code. I mean, you don't want it. No
Right.
builder in their right mind wants to do that. You're going to be everything frozen.
Right.
Yeah.
Heating, everything was in there. All the waste lines, the heating pipes, everything was looped in through that. I guess that I must have been sitting right above the boiler. But even so, it
just didn't
never
make sense.
occurred to me that they were going to put all the pipes there.
And then the plumber comes in. You got to do it quick. So he's like, well, it's going to be $8,000.
Exactly.
And you're kind of like, well, I kind of have to do it, And then the homeowners, I'm not paying it, it's.
Yep. No, I had that difficult conversation, and again, it's the eye roll of like, how was I to know that every plumbing pipe in your house was going to be right here?
It literally just happened like a month ago to us. But or you're like, you open something up, and for some reason the builder changed the direction of the floor joist, and you end up thinking that it's not a load-bearing wall, and it's a load-bearing. And you're like, why'd you change? You had some extra 9-footers or something, and you put them in, like you changed direction just in this room. Why? And then, beams are expensive too. And then, that puts a hold on. And then people forget it. You said it was going to take, 3 months, and, it's a year later. Well, we had to get an engineered beam.
Right.
We had to get an engineer. And right, get an engineer. They didn't call you back for three months, 3 weeks. And then, we got that. And then the building department, wanted this or wanted that. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, I still say, I mean, I'm probably biased. I mean, you've been in the industry, but I still think in many ways that remodeling is probably one of the toughest businesses.
100%.
You're taking your manufacturing process into their home. I mean, sometimes literally in their living room, you're setting up saws. You're in their garage, all the materials delivered to the site. And way too often, they're living there while you're doing all of this.
And you're setting up, cleaning up, doing that. It's, people will be like, well, I can, additions, we see this a lot. Well, you can get a new house, $300 a square. I'm like, well, yeah, that's great. But that's on a production site.
Right.
In the line of a production development, where they're just going down the line, they're super efficient. We have to take your addition, or the excavator's got to come in and not run over your flowers, not run over the oil
Don't
tank.
break up the driveway.
Exactly.
Let's not find the septic field.
Right. We got to get a dumpster somewhere in all of this stuff. We've got to, and then we have to attach all of this stuff to your existing house. So how do we connect this to the existing roof? How are we going to make the siding all work? That's why it's more expensive. And these aren't production crews. These are guys that know how to remodel and do all of this stuff to connect it and make it look so it looks like the same. So
so it looks like we're never there.
Right.
No, it's an art, and I say it, and I often wonder, like, do I say that because I've been in the business and, I've never been in a lot of other businesses and I'm biased, but I still really believe, like, you take your car to the shop. Mm-hmm. They don't bring the shop out and set up in your driveway.
Yeah.
You go to the doctor's office.
Right. Yeah.
All the equipment's there.
Right.
No, I'm going to bring all my saws, all my equipment, all my materials, all the production.
Can you imagine? Like, that's a good analogy. Like, you're going to get surgery and they bring the hospital to you.
Right.
And they set up the MRI machine or
yeah,
whatever.
Can we move the sofa back a little bit? Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. And then, they're plugging into your electric panel and things blowing up.
Yeah, no, it's a challenge. And that's, going back, we talked about it before. A lot of the guys are very talented and they struggle on the business side. But if there's any business that should make you money, you're earning every penny you make in this business. You're not raking anybody over the coals. The market's tight, and it's a tough business.
You know, professional, you think a professional, everybody, white collar, attorney, accountant, all that stuff, they're making $250 an hour. You should be at $200 an hour.
Yes.
You are an expert in the field, especially if you're running the job. I mean, maybe you're stretching it if you're painting. You can't charge the $200, but you better at least be 60 to 80.
Right.
That's what the true cost. And the problem is, guys are out there not charging that. It brings the industry down. I mean, Connecticut's tough. I mean, and I think New York and Massachusetts have a little bit more elevated standards. But you gotta charge, and
And I think
and own it.
You bring up a good point there too. I mean, I think one of the challenges, you talk about money. We talked about that before, and being comfortable talking about money. A lot of the guys, working as carpenters, and then they become a project super, and then they decide they're going to go out on their own as the natural progression.
Right.
Usually because the company they're working with isn't growing, and they want to be more than just a project super for the rest of their life. So at 35 years old, they've reached the pinnacle of their career. Mm-hmm. But they're making 80, 90,000 a year maybe, if they're really good running projects.
Yep.
And for them to start then being a business owner and saying, well, no, you should be making 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 a year. Like, these are just numbers that won't go in their heads. Like, I'm not building rockets here. It's just a house. Right. It's not a big deal. I know how to do it. You're like, do you realize nobody else knows how to do this? Exactly. Like,
they have to know that they deserve it, and also the reality is, on that track to make that 400,000 or 500,000, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and it's going to eat it up. So you have to charge for the 400. You're probably going to lose 300 the first year, and it's slowly, but you have to have the money to lose. Right. So you have to be able, as you're figuring out, as you're scaling. But you're absolutely right. You have to value that.
And it's just hard to when you're making 80,000 or whatever. To say, to a new business owner, well, you should be making 150 now.
Right.
They're like, well, I'm not even doing any of the work.
Right. But
because we all know what work is. It involves dirt and sweat.
Yep.
And that's sitting behind a desk.
Right.
That's just goofing off stuff.
Right.
So, I'm not doing any work. I shouldn't make 150.
Right. But all that knowledge comes in and fixes the problems that don't get fixed without you. And that's, that little.
That's the value. The guy that fixes it in 2 minutes.
So there's like that story, the parable where the guy goes in and he's got a little hammer and he hits the engine and starts back up and he charges 30,000.
Right.
People are like, for hitting it with the hammer, and you're like, yeah, because I knew where to hit.
I knew where to hit it.
Yeah.
And that's the skill that, a lot of times, just because we've been in the industry so long, we don't even realize we bring to the table. Right. We don't realize that to a lot of people, what we do as builders and remodelers looks like magic.
Right.
You mean you can turn a pile of lumber in my front yard into a house?
Yeah.
Yeah, give me a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
To other people, me included, I look at computer programmers and I don't know what they do. I don't know, and I still don't even understand touchscreens.
Right.
No idea how that magic works.
Yeah.
That's true magic right there. However they keep moving that button, I touch it. But for a lot of people, what we do in construction is magic.
Yeah.
They don't understand, where the water comes from or how the electricity works or how any of this stuff works.
Right.
And
we got to start valuing. You got to value the trades more.
Right.
Because we need to, because the reality is we have to elevate it, value it, because we need to attract more people. Because if we don't have the workforce, we're not going to get any of this stuff done.
No.
It's not even about, the cost or anything right now. It's like we're in a housing right now is a serious problem.
Right.
Nobody's been building enough. All the houses in Connecticut, and in New England are old. They have to be remodeled. They have to be kept up. We just need people to do it. It's not even.
And that's the number one. When I talk to people, I go, "What's your biggest problem in business right now?" And it's like finding people.
Yeah.
I talked to a guy in Minnesota a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "I could grow if I could find more people."
Right.
He goes, "I'm putting in all the work. I got a nice business. I'm making good money. Everything is great. I could be doing more, but I can't." just I ran out of people.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's like, well, that sucks. like just ran out of people.
Yeah.
He goes, I get the phone calls.
We just need to figure out how AI can you know, and then that's the thing. AI is not going to help us out.
It's not going to fix it. AI is not going to lay under the kitchen sink or under the kitchen cabinet and fix the drippy faucet under the sink.
I did see him. They had a robot being able to drywall tape.
I've seen those.
Yeah.
And I just shake my head and go.
They're not going to be able to do it in old homes.
They need a nice, clean, flat surface to roll around.
You know, it rolls over the old house, and then the tapes. Yeah.
Right, and the room is small. You know, it's one thing if you were doing a commercial run, doing a core and shell or a warehouse or something like that.
Right.
It's got its applications, but sometimes I look at some of the automation that we've got right now that's coming out. I'm like, in the time it would have taken me to set up the equipment, I could have had it done.
Yeah, like, and then the equipment.
Right. I saw a concrete finishing machine the other day, but it was on rails and everything, and I was like, well, how much time did they spend setting up the rails and leveling and a couple of 2x4s and a guy with a trowel? We could have had that done. Yeah. But you got to find the guy with the trowel.
I know, and they have to want to come back into the trades,
and they got to want to do concrete.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, that was awesome. I think we almost hit an hour. We're 4 minutes till 2:00, so that's going to give us a lot of good. We had some really good. So what Liam does is, I think he might have mentioned.
Yeah.
He'll see the transcript and then say when we have a really some good points, pop that out. So out of an hour we could have 10 or 15, 20 different sound bites.
And those are great posts.
Those are better than, because honestly. Yeah, thanks guys. That was a lot of fun. I think we had a couple people here. Appreciate you watching.